Ever since I left the US and moved to Nigeria, my life has gotten a little bit lighter. I can do more things. I can save more money. I can travel more. I can pay for things to be done for me so that way I don't feel like I'm always stressing out. I was working and I wasn't moving forward. I would get paid and I would pay all my bills first, and then I would see how much is left over for me to actually have a life. And I open up my banking app and then I'm just like, I don't have any damn money. Because I'm not killing myself working multiple jobs and renting out my house, that I don't have any damn money. But I am a full-blown educator. I'm working 50 hours a week and I don't have any damn money. It was crazy. I couldn't do it. When I realized that I was struggling to get my mind together to continue on, I knew I had to change something. It was time for me to figure things out. It was time for me to switch gears. I had spent a couple years, I think, like with the idea in mind that I wanted to have a career overseas at some point. I just didn't want to do what I was doing anymore. They would send me my contract and I couldn't sign it. And I had to sign it because I had to make sure I had an income. But there was one year, I think, the contract was due, and I waited until the very last minute of the due date, literally at 11:59 before midnight for me to sign that contract, because that's how much I didn't want to. The year after that, I'm pretty sure I signed my contract late, but they need us, so they're not just going to not give you your contract. So I started looking at different career paths. I started looking for different jobs. I was looking at a whole lot of different options of how I was going to change my situation around, because mentally, financially, even physically, I'm working so much, the physical strain is a lot too. So I figured okay, it's time for a change. And as I'm trying to find these new career paths and I'm looking at these different jobs, a friend of mine that I know that was working overseas sent me a message and was just like, why don't you do this? You could just go, get a job in China. And then I started joking around with my family that I was moving to China. They hated that, by the way. They were like, oh my gosh, they hated that joke. But then after a while of telling the joke, I was just like, this is actually serious for me. So I started really looking into different agencies that could help me make this happen. And so I made it happen because I was just tired. Honestly, emotionally, physically, I was just tired. Went to college in USF, Tampa, go Bulls. Transition, moved to Atlanta, basically moved to Atlanta for grad school. I was in grad school getting my counseling degree, and I was working, and I just felt like I really wanted to do something different with the job that I had, something that was gonna align more with my career goals. And so I went the route of becoming a teacher while I was in grad school. So with that, I was getting my counseling degree, I was a teacher, and together that just kind of combined into what I'm doing now, because after I graduated, I was still a teacher and I became a counselor, and that's kind of how I got led here to current Nigeria, because I combined my two careers into one. Teaching was great. I loved my kids. I do. I loved my students. They were very sweet. They were amazing, but it was a lot of behavior issues around the area of Atlanta that I worked at. I chose Nigeria on purpose. I was looking at jobs. I applied to different places in China, places in Japan. I want to say even Thailand or something. I'm not really sure. Then I saw this job in Nigeria and I really was thinking Nigeria? And then when I saw the job itself, I was like, it just seemed like a really good fit. And it just seemed like a really good place to start, because I didn't know what this international thing was going to do. And I think coming to a place like this that has this type of culture and people that kind of look like me, I figured would give me more comfort. And my family said the same thing. They basically were just like, you know what? I think Nigeria is okay for you, at least as like a starting point, because it wouldn't be such a huge culture shock as someone who's moving internationally for the first time. So I land here in Nigeria and I'm just like, wow, this is just like, it reminded me of Haiti, honestly. Like I come to Nigeria and it's just like, and I don't, it's, and I'm looking at things, and, you know, I'm in Abuja too, which is a much, you know, slower paced city. So I think that kind of helped as well. It's beautiful out here. But it just, I could see the culture right away. And I was just like, this is definitely not what I was expecting. It wasn't what I was expecting at all. Like I got the cows walking in traffic. Honestly, it's just this supernatural place. And I didn't feel the danger that, you know, other people might be talking about, but I like Abuja. I work normal hours now, at least. Okay. I go to work and I come home and then I don't have to keep working like I used to. And as far as like the finances, it's like I can afford to do things. And so this apartment that I am sitting in is paid for by the people that I work for, by the company I work for. So I don't have to pay the rent. I don't have to pay the electric. I don't have to pay the water. I don't really have to pay any expenses at all when it comes to anything in this house. Even the gas that I use to cook, I'll get reimbursed for. You know, I get paid around the same as I was getting paid in Atlanta, because when I left Atlanta, I want to say I was going to have a contract this year's contract would have been around like what? between 62, 65, because I had been there for a couple years. So I've kind of transitioned from the money I used to make before. This contract is about the same. So I get 80% paid in dollars, and then I get 20% of it paid in Naira. And I can live off of the 20%. And so even though like I understand there's a lot of inflation and everything going on in Nigeria. So like I do spend a lot of money in terms of like Nigeria. Like, so the expenses is like, although on an American standpoint, when you're looking at it in dollar bills, it doesn't seem like it's more, but I am paying for more things. Like I'm paying for a housekeeper. I can afford a housekeeper, by the way, which I couldn't do before. But anyway, I want to say I pay my housekeeper around $90 a month. And Shadow has a dog walker because he's a spoiled brat. And so there's a lady that comes to walk him at night. I pay her like $40 a month. I have a cook who comes and cooks once a week. That costs me like what, $30 a month? My housekeeper also cooks once a week. So basically I have two separate people cooking. I pay a personal trainer that comes to the gym. I actually have a gym right out there. The view out here is actually really cute, by the way. I have a pool. There's a pool I can see in the gym over there. So yeah, so I have a personal trainer, and personal trainers in the US, I don't know if you guys know how much those were costing, but those are not cheap. I pay my personal trainer, I want to say maybe about $25 a week. So I do 3 sessions with him a week. So I pay him about $25 a week. So I'm paying for a lot of different things, but when you're looking at it in dollar bills, all of that fits into 20% of my income, versus I didn't even have 20% of my income left over for myself when I was done paying for everything in the US. And now I have completely like turned that over. Overall, I am able to go out to eat more. I am able to just go do entertainment stuff. And I want to say like the cost kind of averages a little bit depending on what you do, because if you're doing something that's a little bit more localized, you're probably saving money. But if you're doing something that is a little bit more catered towards the word that we don't like, the expats, you know, I feel like it costs a little bit more, or it's on average, because they know like people are going to come and they're going to pay for it or whatever. So it really just depends. My localized stuff, cheaper. My expat-ish type stuff, probably on average. This spoiled one over here, Shadow, you still not coming all the way over here? Whatever. I cook his food. I know. He's a spoiled brat. Did I not just say he's a spoiled brat? Okay, so I have a butcher that comes and delivers the meat. I have people that come and deliver vegetables. And then I have the app that I use that I also just buy stuff off of all the time. And then my housekeeper just brings me the eggs magically, and then I just pay her whatever it is from whoever she buys it from. I don't know where it comes from. It just shows up at the fridge, okay? So so honestly, like Shadow, like I'll order like shredded chicken, shredded beef, and ground beef from the meat guy. I'll order like, turkey wings and lamb meat and all that stuff for myself. So on average, I want to say like every week I'm probably spending about, it's not that much. It's like $50 a week with the butcher. But then the stuff that I order lasts like about 2 weeks though. His stuff lasts a little while. So I'll cook his food. I'll cook his little shredded meat and his vegetables with his pumpkin. And then I'll put a little bit of kibble in there because he needs the nutrition. I'll add some kibble in there. But yes, he eats a mix of kibble and homemade food. Well, I have a healthy dog, thank God, but he does get groomed every so often. I want to say once a month he gets groomed. That doesn't really cost much at all. I think his grooming costs like what, $15 maybe to get him groomed, and then he gets a bath and a cut, and then my housekeeper gives him a bath, periodically as well. That obviously is just is just something she does. She doubles as his nanny, so she really takes good care of him. She loves him and I love her. She's the best, honestly. Shout out to her. She's the best ever. So I did a couple of things because I did say I had two separate careers there, which was actually part of the problem because at the time of me being a teacher, I started in like the 40s because I didn't even have like a teaching certification at the time that I started. And so I was getting paid like a provisional rate of like, I don't know, like 42, 45 or something like that. I really can't remember the exact number. But let's imagine you're getting like, I don't know, like $1,500 every 2 weeks or so. Hardly any money to live off of if you're actually paying bills, you're paying mortgage, you're paying this and this and that. And so at the time I was living with my aunt because I did say she's the one who asked me to move to Atlanta. So she had a daughter. So it was just basically the three of us living in her house in Atlanta. So I didn't have to pay like the rent and stuff at first. So making that money wasn't the most terrible. But I still had other things to do. I had like, things to pay for, up, myself, getting stuff done, nails, hair, different things like that, cars, paying a car note, paying car insurance, this and that. And then I was also trying to buy a house. And so what I realized was that it was really hard to save this money to buy this house. Because even though I didn't have a current mortgage, it's just living life it was just not feasible to save such a great amount of money. And so I finally did it though, thank God. And so when I did, I, eventually finished school, eventually got my teaching certification. So I started making more money. So now I'm like, what? At 55. So now we can make like what? 2,200 a month. So it was really hard. And so I want to say I left off, not a month, but every 2 weeks. So like you know, so when I got this house, worked hard, saved this money, got this house. I want to say I got the house. I paid $250 for the house. And so I first the house I started out with paying about $1,500 a month for the mortgage. And then after the mortgage, you have the gas because the house had a gas line for the heat or whatever. And then we had the electricity, and then you got the water, and then you have the car note, and then you have the car, and then you have just, groceries, and then you have to put gas in the car because you have to go to work, right? You have to do all of these things. So I'm like, okay, so let's just say I'm making 4,000, right? You got 4,000 a month because around 20, let's just say we're making 4,000 a month, right? Then you got 1,500 for the mortgage. And then you got 200 for this. And then you got 500 for the car. And then you got 300 for the insurance. And then you got this, and then you got that, and you got that. And then by the time you're done, It's like you could eat, maybe, you can't eat anything nice. Definitely not having steak and lobster. So it was just very difficult. And so I got a second job because teaching was just not doing it. So I got a second job, and I basically used my counseling degree at that point because, I was in school when I moved. So I started working at like a psychiatric hospital, just part-time, just to bring in some extra money. So at this point, I'm bringing in an extra $1,000 a month. So that thousand is just like, okay, now if I want to do something, now if I want to go on a trip, now if I want to have a nice dinner, now if I want to get my nails done or make my hair nice or whatever, now I can probably afford it. But that means I'm working all day as a teacher. I'm working Monday through Friday. I'm at school at 7 o'clock in the morning, leaving work at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But then I have to be at the hospital at 4:30. So I run home. I can have enough time to maybe stuff my face for 15, 20 minutes. And then I'm at the hospital at 4:30 and I'm there until 10:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night. So I'm working like 6 days a week at this point. Like I'm working nights at the hospital, days at the school, one weekend day at the hospital. So I have Sundays off. One day to like recoup, one day to say like, okay, like I can take a nap, and then I have to start the whole thing again on Monday. So it was a lot. It was like a revolving door of just like I'm working, 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 working. And for me to even be able to like have a life, I have to have a second job. Having a second job basically means the only thing I'm doing now is working. Fast forward 4 years of working two jobs, teacher, counselor. At one point, while I was in school and getting my internship, I was doing four things. I had grad school, I had my teaching certification program, I had the actual teaching job, and then I had my internship. So that's two schools, two jobs at the same time. Eventually, we have two jobs. Okay, cool. Still, like I said, working 6 days. Fast forward 4 years of working two jobs. I finally stopped working one, stopped working at the hospital because unfortunately, teaching, even though I went to school for counseling, teaching was making me more money at the time. And at that point, I'm thinking financially, I have to make the best decision. Which one is going to actually pay the bills? So stopped working at the hospital, kept teaching. And then when that happened, it was just like, you could see the shift in the finances at that point because that income being gone, even though, and oh, I forgot the fact that I even was Airbnb my house because I had the space to do so. So I Airbnb my house part-time for extra income, even on top of that. So when I stopped working at the hospital and I took a period of time not Airbnb-ing anymore, it was like the shift was like, wow. Then it was like, instead of adding money to a savings account, I had to be taking money out of a savings account because the mortgage from $1,500 jumped to $1,900. Taxes, taxes. Nobody tells you about that, by the way, because realtors and everybody who sells you the house does not tell you how much more money you might end up spending after you buy the house, right? So taxes go up after a year of ownership. And now my $1,500 mortgage jumps to $1,900. Do you understand the difference a $400 a month mortgage makes throughout a period of like when you're trying to balance it out on one paycheck? So it was hard. Like it was difficult for no reason because all I did was work and pay bills. I was exhausted literally every day. I just hope that they figure things out because I see things and I'm like, wow, I don't even know what to say. Like the prices was already like really bad when I was there. And the way that people talk about it now, it's like, it seems like it's worse. And now we're on like the brink of war or all this other stuff going on. And I just feel like you can tell like the US is just a lot. Like the weight over there is a lot. And I could see that. So no, I had not stepped foot in Africa before. But I am from Haiti. And I think that basically, that has a lot to do with like my mindset, because I feel like Haiti gets the same kind of reputation as a lot of different countries in Africa, as far as like not being the best place to live and being poor or being dangerous or being all these different types of things. It definitely looks that way. I mean, I was in Haiti like what, 3 years ago, and you know, I was fine, but I can see why, I can see why it's not the first place that people are jumping to travel to. So now that I am able to live off of 20% of my income, 80% gives us a little bit of playtime. Okay. So I can save a little bit and I can still use a little bit to see the world, because that was one of the goals that I had. I was just like, if I'm going to uproot my life and move across the world and go live in Nigeria, I feel like I want to see other things. I will say living in Nigeria does make it a little bit harder to travel though, because it is expensive to buy a flight and go somewhere. It is expensive to do certain things, but I have still been able to visit, I want to say 4 countries since I've been here. So went to Dubai first, solo trip, had a great time. Went to Tanzania and solo trip again, had a great time. And took a safari in the Serengeti and then spent some time in Zanzibar. Great vacation. And then just recently for spring break, I did 2 countries in one. I went to Europe. I went to Paris at first and spent some time there. And then I went to Prague. Prague was like half work. There was a conference there, but I was still able to see the country a little bit. So dating, okay, so I don't think I've really been in the right mindset to really date. But I will say I've had some interest, people have been interested or whatever. But I think until I really get in the right mindset, I probably can't really dive in like that, because Nigerian men tend to they're very there's an intention there. Like they're like, okay, I want this, let's go. They don't really want to waste like a lot of dating time. So I can't just be on limbo and just go on dates and then months later we still, just, in limbo. And I feel like until I can really have the mindset like, oh yeah, I want a man. I don't think dating right now is.
So you're basically saying you can't date Nigerian men until you're ready to get married?
Honestly, or I don't know. It's just, okay, so my phrase, I've been saying this phrase quite a bit. I keep saying I'm here for a good time, not a long time. Because I keep telling myself and I think that's part of the mindset too, because I keep telling myself I'm on a contract and of course I can stay and I can continue on for as long as I want, right? Or as long as they'll have me, by the way. It takes 2 to tango with this job. But let's say I find somebody and then we get serious and I want to go to Korea next. What are we doing? Are you am I going to get married and then stay in Nigeria because that's my life now? Or am I going to meet someone that is going to transition to different places with me? I will say there are options out there. Be careful though, because they don't all wear rings. That's all I will say about that.